Hello, and thank you for joining me for this demonstration of the Tonkean platform. You see, Tonkean is an intake, triage, and coordination solution. If you don't know what that means, well, stick around. We're going to dig into it. You see, Tonkean is designed to solve this problem. What we found is that in many organizations, processes and people are misaligned. Systems and people are misaligned. And so there may be an intended process, whether it be for procurement or for legal or for HR or for sales. We do this in a variety of places. The department really doesn't matter that much. But the point is, where do you have a process that makes you scratch your head and go, I can't believe we do it this way? Often the problem is what's often referred to as the last mile problem. The handoff between systems is broken and requires custom coding and technical defects. Or the handoff between systems and people is broken, or the end user just doesn't know where to go. So how do we bring the process to the person? How do we enforce good process so that you can get those efficiency gains? And how do we give a great experience to that user and visibility and insights to the team, the operations professional, whoever they might be? Well, today, a lot of processes look like this. If you want to log a request with a particular team, let's use procurement as an example, well, read this multi-step explanation of what a purchase request is and how to log it and everything that you need to do. Not picking on anybody in particular, but each of these platforms speak their own language. They have their own way of interacting. They have their own bookmark that end users have to remember to put in their browser that often gets forgotten. And this poor experience leads to poor adoption. That means bad visibility. And that means a bad experience for everybody. So how do we fix this? Well, we can elevate the experience of your existing tools. You see, Tonkean wraps around the solutions you have today and gives you an integration strategy so that rather than you having to create, custom created handoffs or pay for connectors or develop a bunch of integrations between your existing technology, we can centralize it on Tonkean and allow us to quarterback the handoffs and process between systems. Tonkean does very in-depth integrations so that we can, at a very stateful level, understand what is the business context of each of these requests and records in each of your different systems. If you don't know what that means, let's dig into it right now. Here is the Tonkean platform. We provide an operations team, whether it be procurement or whether it be legal or HR or anything you want to put in front of the word ops. That's who we focus on. But we primarily address a lot of use cases in legal and procurement because these are organizations that don't have a method of intake, triage, and coordination. They have systems of record, but the handoff, the experience tends to be broken. And so we do very well there because we are specifically designed to intake from anywhere, meaning if we will meet end users where they are rather than forcing them to adopt multiple different portals and systems. Whether the requests came from email or Slack or Teams or GChat or a form or another system, we allow the work to be monitored, to come in and give the operations team visibility into exactly how the work is being worked. Okay? So let's go ahead and step this forward a bit. I mentioned that Tonkean does integrations in a really unique way, that's important to the Tonkean platform, but what does that mean? Well, here is a use case for intake. You see all of our different channels here at the top. Tonkean is organized that you have a solution, that you have all of the different workflows that align to a particular business problem and all of the underlying systems that drive that workflow. These systems are controlled by IT and their administrators, but access to them can be delegated so that you maintain principle of least privilege, and your operations team can develop very, very robust workflows off of them. And because it's Tonkean and we're integrated as the central repository to manage these coordination of tasks, it means that we have the full visibility into the end-to-end workflow. And that is a key piece that's missing in the automation world today. Many tools out there, and we could list all sorts of them, they're focused on automating the task. Here's a manual repetitive task that I don't want to do anymore, okay? You can use a tool for that, you can use Python for that, JavaScript, there's a lot of ways to automate a task, but what about the larger process? What about when work needs to go through each of these systems? DocuSign is really good at what it does, so is Salesforce. But their it doesn't make sense for them to focus their time and attention and development energy into being an open ecosystem that connects to everything and allows work to flow in and out. They want to keep you in their interface, which is perfectly understandable. Tonkean takes the opposite approach. We want you to work where you want to work, and we want to orchestrate those APIs into a cohesive workflow. So that, for instance, I can monitor Salesforce, so that even if I'm in legal and I have no visibility, I don't care what's going on in Salesforce, instead of having to ask the sales team over and over again, hey, reach out to us and bring us in so that we can get your custodial agreement generated. And meanwhile, sales is saying, I don't even know what that is. I don't know how to work with you guys. I'm focused on closing sales. I'm not going to remember this step. This allows legal to actually monitor that system of record. And when an opportunity reaches the state of KYC complete, know your customer is what that stands for, we can do certain actions. And everything here is organized into when do. This is key to the Tonkean platform. We're stateful. We monitor these things rather than just being a little connector. We're actually monitoring Salesforce. And when a webhook or an API collect lets us know that this opportunity has changed state, then we trigger certain actions. We do certain things. This is not an if-then workflow. If you have a 30-step if-then workflow and you change something in the middle, every subsequent step is broken. Tonkean is not that way. We organize into states. What are the different states that this workflow could exist in? And what that means is you can read this thing left to right. It's very quick to understand. It's built on no code. You can't code in Tonkean, so it's very simple to develop on. And I can understand the different statuses that my workflow is going to exist in, so that if I delete one of these states, the workflow doesn't break. I've simply removed that state, that when it's in that state, do these things. This may seem like an odd concept to really focus on, but it's so powerful. By doing this, we're creating workflows that are very robust and can grow over time and reduce the technical debt for teams. We'll automatically send a message, driving it with the data from the underlying platform. Tonkean's essentially doing VLOOKUPs between each of your systems, so that I say, oh, this opportunity with this information, let me look up information about them in accounts payable systems, in our procurement systems, in my legal systems, and see what contracts we have against them. And then it can do things like send us this question, trigger a form to be filled, and track this work from beginning to end. Let's actually do it. Let's run this. So hopping over, here's my Salesforce. Here's an opportunity that I created. Let's move it to KYC complete. Now at this stage of my workflow, my legal team said, you know what, when something happens here, when it reaches this status, I wanted to do something. I wanted to reach out to legal, and I wanted to tell them that this has happened, and I wanted to trigger and ask the sales executive if they should actually generate a custodial agreement. So by scrolling down, I see that I got a DM from Tonkean, and it says, hello, sales associate. I see your opportunity that has reached this stage. What we typically do is generate the custody agreement. Do you agree? Do you want to do that? So we give them a method to track their request so that they can say that, oh, instead of me having to reach out to legal, legal's proactively reaching out to me. And I have all these ways to track and understand this information. Great. I can also click this button and begin this process. Now, of course, you could enforce this, but this is the actual information from Salesforce about my opportunity. And it's located in Michigan, that it has an onboarding fee of this, that it's a tier whatever client. Anything that's available through the API we can work with, and we can integrate into forms like this. We call this a human in the loop action. It's central to what we do. It's not enough to just push data from here to there. We have to keep this human at the center of it to make sure that our automation is working effectively so that they can make changes. Maybe they entered the wrong fee when they did this 3 months ago, and now they need to update it. That's fine. So I go ahead and I submit that. And now, at this point, now that the request is in a state where it's ready to be worked with legal, now it goes and it coordinates with legal. And so I could continue going through this workflow, and I will just for a moment, to show you that this is more than simple task automation. This is true process orchestration. I'm now handing off work between teams by monitoring systems. I'm keeping them all in the loop by giving them a pizza tracker for their request to understand where it is. And as I action these things, I can actually trigger additional steps. And it'll absolutely send notifications to the user to let them know where their request is, that the contract's currently being generated, if approval's been given. And then we can manage things like the redlining process and signing of DocuSign contracts. If you don't like this workflow, if you think, you know what, I would never do this, that's completely fine. To edit it, you simply hit a button and you choose from, are we going to coordinate people, orchestrate people and teams? Are we going to apply robust workflow logic, which we'll talk about in just 1 second? Or are we going to perform actions against systems? Maybe when this happens in Salesforce, you create a ticket in Jira for InfoSec to perform some sort of work. Maybe you log a matter in Simple Legal. These changes are simple and easy to make so that you can create these actions without having to write any code to do so. We are a robust forms engine built on top of an integration platform, and that allows you to create true cross-departmental workflowing, which is what is enabling these large dashboards from intake to triage to coordination. This is unique because a lot of organizations focus on the task, they focus on the handoff, or the one small action that needs to be presented, and they don't think about the work being brought in, the intake, or necessarily the coordination after. How do we keep all relevant parties up to date? How do we bring in work from any source so that we have visibility into it? And then we could apply this to so many different use cases. And something that is also happening here is that orchestration of other solutions, so that whenever this contract gets generated, I can actually display it to the end user. Let's pull up an example of that. And as the procurement team, I can view all of my work in process, all of these requests, including the one that I've logged. I can keep backlogs of this, assignments, and it gives me visibility into being able to actually display and understand the contracts being generated, where they are, how they're being worked. All in, what we're giving teams is a way to transform the process experience. If we can transform the experience, then we can get out of this cycle of constantly avoiding the process. We can bring it to the user. We can delight the end users, and this means that you can adopt these workflows very, very quickly because they don't mean you have to rip and replace a bunch of tools to get the value out of them. And then maybe most importantly, it's giving you an integration and workflow strategy. So we talked about how these workflows are robust, how they're no code, how they're easy to maintain and build on going forward. That means you don't have to constantly spend services dollars to create custom code every time you want to develop a workflow. It also means that it's essential for Tonkean to have really robust capabilities that are simply implemented so that you can consume things like optical character recognition. An example of this would be Lyft, who is using us to create and to read and generate all of their unemployment contracts across all of the 50 states in the US. Being able to extract information automatically from these documents and to train an AI algorithm to do that over time is extremely powerful. You can use the built-in natural language processing, NLP, and OCR capabilities within Tonkean. They're very, very powerful and used by a lot of organizations today. Or if you have a preferred vendor for natural language and for OCR, great. I'm sure they have an API. We work with a lot of them. Let's bring them into this workflow. Let's better leverage the investment that you've already made. An example of this would be ChatGPT, brand new technology that companies are looking for how to use. We've actually integrated into our workflows so that if there is a new contract that comes along that no one's ever seen before, we can put it through OpenAI and extract data with a high degree of accuracy and bring the benefits of that AI into your workflow and into your process. This means that instead of you having to go and buy a point solution to a point problem every time they come up, you can invest in a platform that's going to be able to grow with you, that's going to be able to adopt new technology into it, and give you an integration and workflow strategy going forward for your business unit. No more small purchases to fix small problems. Let's create a cohesive environment that puts the control of the workflow into the hands of the operations professional so that you can save money and gain the efficiency of workflow and automation. So I hope that this was helpful. We'd love to talk to you more about how we can put a wrapper around your existing systems to transform the experience of working with them, so that even if your users prefer to work in something like Slack, we can use that as our portal to engage with your end users and direct them to the appropriate process that you've already put in place for them. This means that now, instead of your teams having to remember all the systems they need to fill in forms for and all of the relevant tools that have to be involved in their process, we can confirm information with them, we can work in the interface they're most comfortable in, and we can direct them to that appropriate workflow. If you have any questions, we'd love to talk to you. Our implementation team is great at training and getting you up to speed. Please check out docs.tonkean.com to view our documentation, or library.tonkean.com to view all of our out-of-the-box templates to help you get off the ground faster. I hope that this was interesting, and I hope that we get to talk again soon. Catch you next time.